A bit about myself. I spent most of my training at Singapore General Hospital before I had the honor of being the head of Department of Sengkang Psychiatry, where I set the team. So it's Sengkang General Hospital in the Northeast. I did my fellowship training in Stanford Hospital. And right now I'm at Farrer Park Hospital, where I've set up my own private practice with my friends. That's me. Do scan the QR code if you want to connect with me. And do follow us on Instagram. So when people talk about the pandemic, they often had idea about working from home being something very relaxed and fun. And this cannot be further from the truth. It can really be quite stressful. There has been a lot of newspaper report on how the pandemic has caused a lot of stress for everybody. So we have the new variant detected. Fortunately, it's not as virulent as we think. And then there's a lot of stress from working from home. In fact, there are studies that show that working from home can even be more stressful than frontliners. So these are some of the things that might cross your mind every time you read a newspaper report. There are lockdown. Sometimes they're locked down. Fortunately, we have avoided that recently. Sometimes the gyms gets closed down. Sometimes there are 2 of us that can eat. Now it's 5. So always there's a lot of vacillation, a lot of changes in the policy. So a lot of people has been experiencing burnout. This is the mother of burnout. Her name is Christina Maslik. She talks about how burnout is the cumulative stress from daily life, resulting in exhaustion, cynicism, and feelings of low accomplishments. Some stress is actually very good for us. If there are no stress, actually, we will not be very motivated to do anything. But on the other hand, if there's too much stress, our performance will drop. So it's important to find the right amount of stress. So what happens when we are too stressed or we're experiencing burnout? Many problems can pop out, including like lower life satisfaction, having poorer productivity at work and at home and at school, higher MC rates, difficulties in family, increased use of alcohol or substance use, high rates of depression and anxiety, even affects physical health. There's been a lot of reports that there's been a spike of calls to SOS. There's been also been report in New York Times talking about how there are more breakups, more divorces in the past 2 years. So who among us are at high risk? Is those people with medical problems, children, elderly women, healthcare workers, migrant workers. As we remember in the news, there was a lot of talks about migrant workers getting burned out after being cooped out in the places that they live. So there are many ways we can cope. These are the unhealthy coping mechanisms that some of us may employ sometimes, like drinking, smoking, drinking excessive amount of coffee, the latter which I'm probably a bit guilty of. Displacing anger means like taking out on other people, getting angry, being impatient. Now, some of these are not a problem. So occasionally we cannot be too hard on ourselves if we feel like, sometimes we are all humans, you see. So if we get angry, sometimes we become impatient. It's not a big problem, as long as you notice it and try to fine-tune yourself a bit. So we cannot be so hard on ourselves either. We are not saints. And during this pandemic, actually, there's reports that people are overeating and binge eating. Now, binge eating is eating an amount that is more than what we want to, and then feeling upset or guilty after the binge episode is over. So it's a bit different from overeating. It is usually triggered by things like hunger, anger, loneliness, and tired. So in our practice, we use this mnemonic called HALT, H-A-L-T, to represent these 4 common triggers. So the most common trigger is actually hunger. When we are not eating adequately, when we are skipping meals, it's more likely to binge eat. So it doesn't really help, because when you binge eat, it doesn't really help solve your problems, but you gain weight. So it's like a double whammy. Now, a high body weight has been associated with mental illness. There's been studies that, of course, it's jolly B. For B, he's okay, but if he's a human, he'll be grossly overweight. And if your BMI is very high, that means it's more than 30, you actually have an increased risk of depression and anxiety. But this, of course, it doesn't mean that the lower the BMI, the better. It means that we should be keeping ourselves within a healthy BMI. If our BMI is too high, then there is an increased risk of mental health issues. This is another study that showed that with high BMI, there's a higher risk of mental health issues. This was one done in Changi Hospital. In SGH, we did a study, we also found that for people who are grossly overweight, they have higher risk of depression and binge eating. So we talked a bit about self-compassion just now, saying that sometimes we are all humans, and if we sometimes do something that we're not so proud of, it's okay. Now, self-compassion also means that we need to prioritize our own well-being. The problem with many people today, and in my patient, I notice is usually the mothers, they actually spend a lot of time caring for the children, caring for their husband, doing the chores while working at the same time. So whenever I tell my clients to like go exercise, go yoga, or do things that they like, they always tell me they cannot even find time to go to the toilet. So that is something that you need to remember, that you need to actually care for yourself first before you can look after your loved ones. And this is actually a flight safety video. Even our handphone needs to be charged. So what are the healthy coping? This, I think, have been spoken on by my colleague at Sengkang General Hospital, Dr. Tay. You can look for his YouTube video. He did a fantastic video talking about healthy coping, so I will not go into that. Now, healthy eating is something that is very important. Now, when you come to see a psychiatrist, it's not all about medicine or therapy. Sometimes some of our patients choose not to do medicine, not to take medicine, and neither do they want to go for therapy. And they just want to watch and see how things go first. And often we'll advise them on having a healthy diet. Now, what is a healthy diet? I think most of us actually know this already because of the very successful campaign by the Health Promotion Board. Now, even my mom, who is in her 80s, knows that you should eat more vegetables, use less oil, less salt. You need to eat rice and eat more fish. So this is really common sense. Ministry of Health came out with this quarter, half thing. Means that you should eat a quarter carbohydrates, quarter protein, and then half fruits and vegetables. Now, carbohydrates have been malign as the bad ingredient in our food, right? A lot of people go on like pure protein diet, keto diet, treating carbohydrates as a villain. Actually, starch is very important. Rice, noodles, bread, all these staples are very important because our brain actually mainly uses glucose to function. So if you do not take starch, then you are reducing the efficiency where your brain can utilize sugar. Our brain is also 50% fats. That's why it's very important to have good fats in our diet. And good fats can come in the form of fatty fish like salmon, sardines, nuts, avocados, green leafy vegetables. They all provide good fats for us to fight stress. So do not omit fats in your diet. Although I noticed all this oily fish is quite hard to get from our market. Because after I did this slide, I went to NTUC to try to cook what I was talking about. And I find that actually not so easy to find like mackerels or sardines. Salmon is a bit easier, but I don't like the taste of it. So what do people like me who don't like fish do? Actually, you can consider adding fish oil into your diet. Now, fish supplements are probably best for those who don't eat fish at all. It does have some scientific evidence that is good for schizophrenia, and we do use it for people with depression who are not responding optimally to antidepressant. But the scientific evidence for fish oil is not strong. So just a word of caution that it's not the most, it doesn't have the strongest scientific evidence backing fish oil. How about fruits and vegetables? I think many of us would eat it. Some of us don't like sour food. But fruits and vegetables are actually very important because it digests very slowly. It's a very slow and steady flow of sugar to our brain. And it's very rich in antioxidants, vitamin B, folate, and zinc. All these are very good for depression. Fruit juice, on the other hand, do be careful. There are studies that show that if you drink 1 glass of orange juice every morning, you can gain 2 to 3 kg at the end of the year. Now, 1 glass of orange juice probably contains 3 to 4 oranges, but in reality, if you eat 2 oranges, you'll be very full already. So do be careful about taking fruit juice. Do go for the whole fruits instead because they do contain more fiber, more roughage. Protein, of course, is very important. There is an amino acid, which is a subunit of protein called tryptophan that may help with mood. So do pick plant-based and white meat. Plant-based meat, protein and white meat like fish, chicken, eggs, tofu, green leafy vegetables, and seeds. They help with feeling full. Red meat is a problem, especially if you grill or barbecue it. It actually may increase your risk of certain types of cancer, like colorectal cancer. and it's also high in cholesterol. So do limit your red meat servings to maybe 2 or 3 portions a week, and focus more on chicken, duck, eggs, tofu. So one of the diet that has been getting a lot of popularity recently was the Mediterranean diet, actually, as well as the traditional Asian and Japanese diet. All the traditional diets are actually very healthy because it contains many of the food sources that I'm talking about. So in the Mediterranean diet, you see seafood, you see a lot of nuts, alcohol, of course, in moderation. Not more than 1 glass a day is the recommended. It does increase the risk of cancer. If you can omit alcohol, it's not a bad idea also. This was me trying to practice the Mediterranean diet. When I was in Stanford, I actually did a lot of home cooking because I felt very poor. And you can see I actually went from a bit overweight to normal weight after a few months. So I went from BMI 25, BMI 22. Of course, now I'm back to BMI 25 again. Because once you come back to Singapore, Singapore is a food heaven and there's really a lot of things to eat. So as I mentioned, the Japanese diet is also very healthy, and it contains all the types of food that we talk about. Basically, just remember what you feed your own children. You won't give them a lot of highly processed food like fried chicken or burgers, right? You will make sure they eat more fish, more vegetables. So whatever is good for your kids is good for you. And you will not omit rice or noodles from their diet either, right? You make sure they eat porridge, eat rice, eat noodles. So whatever you feed your children is going to be good for you as well. So limit all this food that are highly processed. Usually, you can tell by just looking around at the label. They will contain ingredients that you will not add into your own food, like chemicals, preservatives. So food with a lot of these kind of things, do limit it because it's not good for your mood. So I mentioned limit alcohol use. Even caffeinated drink, do try to keep to just 1 or 2 glasses a day. Again, I have to say I'm guilty about drinking too much coffee. There are a lot of food myths and food rules that will pop up every few years. During my time, I remember in the 90s, there's the Atkins diet. Then now there's a ketogenic diet. There is this guy that talked about the celery juice diet. He's not even a doctor or dietitian. One day he woke up and he had a vision that celery is good for health. So he wrote a book about celery juice and it was very popular. The price of celery in USA actually shot up because of his book. Then there are other things like paleo diet, detox diet, meal replacements, etc. Now, all these are food myths, food rules. Take it with a pinch of salt. They're probably not, most of them are actually not scientific at all. Yeah. So all this segment on food, I actually pass it with my friends who are dietitians and they verified that what I'm talking about is correct. Yeah. So it's not just a doctor's perspective, but I got the endorsement of my dietitian friends as well. Also, healthy eating, healthy diet promotes happiness. These are my ex-colleagues. Also, since we are at Brahm Center, let's talk a bit about mindful eating. Now, mindful eating is something that has been that is actually very good for binge eating. It also helps to reduce overeating. So mindful eating is about being aware of our hunger. We actually become more present with our food. We slow down eating. It can increase calmness. This mindful eating, actually, you can probably take part in a course in Brahm Center. They probably can go through with you, or you can look at some of Angie's video. I'm sure she must have done one on mindful eating before. So what happens when we are feeling depressed? Now we're going to talk a bit about exercise. Now, when our mood is low, what happens is that we often will lose the motivation or the energy to get out of bed or do things. Yeah, so it becomes a vicious cycle. When we feel low, we don't do things, and then we get less out of life. On the other hand, when we feel better, we are able to do more of what matters and get more out of life. So you don't always need to start at feeling better. You can actually go from doing more of what we want first. And then that can also get your mood to feel better because you get more out of life. So one way to target depression, if a person is not interested in therapy or medication, is actually to be more active. Because just by being more on the move, doing more things, our mood can get better. And this is scientifically proven. So by increasing healthy behavior, we have more positive experiences. It can improve our thoughts and mood. For people who are under a lot of stress or who are having a lot of anxiety or depression, it's sometimes very hard for them to say, go to the gym, or go for long walks, or carry on doing their usual chores. So the basic advice I'll give my clients is to start low, go slow. So just do a bit of something first, like maybe just go downstairs for 5 minutes, or even just go to the letterbox to get your meal. So start really slow first. Start low, go slow first, then slowly work up your intensity of exercise. So this is the usual format we advise them. So first try to identify potential activities that you used to do, and then you rank them from easiest to hardest. Then schedule the easiest one to go first. So don't start with the hardest things first. Don't say go for a 5 kilometer run. You probably can do it once, and then after that, you'll never do it again. Yeah, so maybe just go for a 5 minutes walk first instead of a 5 kilometer run. And after you do that, start monitoring your mood. Having a diary and monitoring what we do is actually very important to make sure that we continue to follow through what we plan to do. So a lot of my clients tell me, no, I don't want, I cannot do it. Now, this statue of David in Italy, I took this photo, and I think I took this photo, or either that I found from the internet. But this statue was not built overnight. It's not like the sculptor decided to do it tonight and he got it over and done with in a day, right? So he actually probably took several years, many years to get it done. So similarly, when we want to get our mood better and we want to start implementing exercises, go slow, do a bit every day before you get to the finishing line. I'm sure you heard of this before, called SMART goals. Now, in psychological medicine, some of these are tweaked to represent different things. So S is the same, be very specific, like go to a park, take a walk, go to NTUC to buy your groceries. And for M, we, instead of the usual SMART goals, we use one that's motivated by values. So think about why you are doing certain exercise. What are your values? Why is this important for you? For instance, let's say you care for your family. Then you're going to NTUC to buy groceries because of your love for your family. So try to link your activities to what is important to you. Be very adaptive also. Like for instance, if it's raining, then maybe you cannot go to NTUC, think of something else that you can do. Also be very realistic. Think about the time, the skill, the support from the family, and have a specific time frame when you do it, how you do it. So this is about setting SMART goals when you want to take on exercise to improve your mood. So how much exercise is going to be helpful when we have depression, anxiety? Now, based on the medical literature, at some point, the person needs to hit it 3 times a week and 60 minutes each time, which is not actually very easy. Because imagine jogging for 60 minutes. I can't even jog for 30 minutes. So it's not easy to reach 60 minutes, but this is the prescribed amount. The good news is that you don't have to do 60 minutes at one go. You can split it up to within the day, like maybe 10 minutes of walking or 20 minutes of weightlifting or 20 minutes of being on the treadmill or something like that. So you can actually split it up, or you can just be brisk walking. At least for a duration of 10 weeks, it must be of moderate intensity such that you feel a bit breathless, but you can still talk. The kind of exercise that are better for mood are actually those that make our heart rate goes up, like brisk walking, jogging, treadmill, cycling, ellipticals. So stretching exercises, weightlifting are not so good for mood compared to exercise that get our heart pumping. Studies have found that if there's no supervision, it usually does not work very well. Most of us tend to give up after a while, unless there's someone in the picture to supervise us. For instance, a physiotherapist, an occupational therapist, your psychologist, your doctor, or maybe even like a gym trainer. So to increase your chance of success, you need to have supervision. A lot of us see exercise as a chore. This Lansing May, I think she famously talked about how exercise is important to look good and to keep fit. So maybe you need to see it as a beauty regime, then you won't find it so much of a chore. She said something like, there's no ugly people, only lazy people. So when I exercise, I think, okay, I want to look good, I better go and exercise. So anything on the move is good. Try to choose what you enjoy. If really you cannot exercise due to like back pain, due to medical conditions, then just try to increase your physical activity. Walk around the house, go downstairs to get the meal. Don't spend so much time on the bed so far. How does exercise help us? It actually increases new brain cells. It also increases brain messengers. These are the messengers that are very important for low mood. One of them, which is serotonin, improve our brain function. It also gives us a better sense of self-esteem and confidence. And there's a sense of accomplishment as well. I think nobody who has exercised will always say, I hated the session, I shouldn't have done it. Usually after we do it, we always say, that was nice. I'm glad I did it. And it's also a break from our worries. So when you exercise, I'm sure the Brahm Center folks will tell you, try to be very mindful of exercise. When you are in the gym, try to put your phone aside. Don't be exercising and have a phone. You'll probably take you double the time to finish your workout. Exercise also results in more socializing. When you go out, you're likely to meet someone that you know. So a bit about eating disorder. I'm coming to a last part. This I have given a previous talk on eating disorder before. It's on YouTube, and it was with Brahm Center as well. You can look it up. So commonly, there are three kinds, from anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, to binge eating disorder. They are very similar. One of the major differences is the BMI. Yeah, so for those that are very underweight is anorexia nervosa. Those in healthy weight is bulimia nervosa or binge eating disorder. Those with binge eating disorder tend to be overweight. So in all of this eating disorder, there are some similarity, like fear of weight gain, how shape and their weight strongly influence their self-esteem, the abnormal eating pattern. Like most of us will keep to 3 meals, 2 snacks, but they may skip meals. And they'll also have inappropriate ways of trying to lose weight, which is not present in binge eating disorder. So people with binge eating disorder do not do anything to compensate for the increased eating. So this is binge eating, something that I mentioned at the start, how it's about eating more rapidly until they feel upset, they feel guilty. And this is the cycle of binge eating that can happen when we are coping poorly. Some of us do indulge in binge eating to cope with difficult emotions. Actually, when I was doing this slide that night, it was quite late at night. I went to the fridge a few times to grab food. And then I thought it was very ironic because I was feeling quite a lot of pressure while doing the slides. And that's the irony of life sometimes. Yeah, so food diary can be very helpful. When we do a food diary and we want to monitor our mood, it may be more helpful than just recording what we eat. Sometimes it's helpful to write down what are the triggers to us having a binge eating. For instance, in my case, I was doing these slides at 2 a.m. I was doing the PowerPoint slide. I was feeling a bit stressed, right? So I wanted to eat. And then what I really ate. So this is an example of a food diary we can do. Now, just by writing this down and having that insight about what you are doing is a first step towards recovery. So why do people develop eating disorder? There are many reasons, many reasons, from biological reasons to social reasons. But some of the reasons also stem from things like childhood obesity, teasing, exposure to negative comments from family members about our own body shape. There are also increased risk of eating disorder if we experience childhood physical or sexual abuse, or a lot of parental discord. Now, again, I want to stress that this may increase your risk, but it's not. If you experience this, it results in that. Now, psychological conditions are not so straightforward, but having difficult experience in childhood does increase our risk of having eating disorders. I always talk about this, and I think in the media, there's always a lot of propagation about having the right body shape and size and having six-pack or having very thin legs. And there's always a bias. When we go out, we will look at people who look better than us, rather than look at people who look worse than us. Like if you go to a gym, there's maybe just 1 or 2 guys there that are super buff or super in shape, but the majority of us are just normal shape and size. But there is this bias where we look out for people who are of a certain shape. And today with Instagram and Facebook, we keep getting exposed to people who look a certain way. Just to remind ourselves that most of our friends actually do not look like that, and only really a very small amount of people look a certain way. And even this is a bit outdated. I think Disney no longer do that. They used to have very thin people as the princess and people who are grossly overweight as the villain, but I think they have moved away from that already. I'm really glad that today a lot of cartoons for kids no longer have a very Barbie-ish kind of look or He-Man look for their heroes and heroines. So what can we do at home so as to increase the risk of eating disorder among our kids? Now, something very important that you may want to do is actually don't praise your children for losing weight. It is something that many of us may accidentally do, even in our daily interactions. For instance, our friends come back from a holiday and they lose some weight, we may praise them. Wow, how do you lose so much weight? You look so good now. So be very careful not to praise kids, especially for losing weight. Don't criticize their shape and size. Don't call them like apoy or fatty bom bom. Don't use this kind of words to criticize them, even you have not seen them for very long. Now, CNY is coming, Chinese New Year is coming very soon. So when you meet your nieces and nephews, please don't criticize their shape and size. It's very triggering, even if they don't have an eating disorder. Be very careful about fat talk in front of your kids also. I've patients where the parents are half naked at home. The father is half naked at home, always looking in the mirror, talking about how he wants to get into better shape. And my clients actually find it very triggering. So be very careful. Even if you have body image dissatisfaction, which all of us have, limit the amount of fat talk in front of your children. Don't label food as good and bad either. Try not to restrict food. Everything in moderation is okay, even highly processed food. It's just that you need to eat less of them. So don't say this is good food, this is bad food. Anyway, even if you ban it at home, they're going to be able to buy it outside as long as they have pocket money. So it's best to have everything at home, but more of the good and less of the unhealthy food. So what should we do more? Try to focus more on inner beauty rather than outer beauty. Compliment your children on their strength, like, oh, you are hardworking, you are very kind to other people, you're very responsible, you bring your own trays back after eating. So compliment them on their strengths rather than compliment them on their outer beauty. When you're worried about your children gaining weight, focus more on the benefits of having more energy and better concentration through exercise or through eating healthier. So rather than say that, you die already, you gain so much weight, people will laugh at you. Don't say that. Focus more on, like, if you were to exercise more, if you were to eat better, you're going to have better energy, better concentration. So focus on this health line of talk instead. Yeah. Encourage more physical activities and limit screen time if weight is higher than expected. And also try to make healthy food more easily available, like have more fruits in the fridge rather than snacks. Of course, again, I have to stress that some snacks are okay, but more fruits, more berries, more apples in the fridge, and cut it up for them. A bit about psychological conditions. There has been an increase in prevalence. We know that depression, anxiety has received a lot of attention in the last 2 years. So if you need help, I'm sure there are counseling services available at Brahm Center, but these are the other helplines that you can go if you require help. A lot of people has a misconception that when they come and see me, I'm going to be very intrusive. There will be a couch and I'll be psychoanalyzing them. Actually, coming to see a psychiatrist is just like coming to see any other doctor. We just sit down. We can really just focus on here and now. We do not have to dwell into the distant past. We do a lot of video consult these days. So as I mentioned earlier, do follow my new medical clinic on Instagram. The team spent a lot of time trying to make sure it looks good. This is me at my new medical clinic. It's called Private Space Medical. So if you want to connect with me, there is a QR code here. I'm located at Farrer Park Medical Center, right above Farrer Park Station. And then with that, thank you.